Hello. Today we are going to be tying a rubber leg spider the way that I tie it. So we have an 1180 Daiichi dry fly hook, size 12 in the vise. I already have some pre-cut foam, but honestly, use whatever color you want. We're just going to start the thread midway of the hook, work our way towards the end of the hook. Clean up that tag. Alright, so with my strip of foam, I'm going to measure up to the eye of the hook, but not over the eye of the hook. We want to still be able to thread the needle and get our fly tied in to our tippet. So I'm going to start by doing like 2 loose turns and then one that's tight, but you sort of rotate the stuff. I mean, it's still loose, right? But rotate it into where you're wrapping from, and it'll come center when it gets tightened down. So we're going to then go back around the middle of the hook, maybe securing this down, coming back, going over another 4 or 5 times, and working our way back up to the center of the hook. Now at this point we're going to fold this first flap over, really pinching it down and holding it into place and sort of rotating it into my turning point like before. I'm going to tighten this down, really cinch it against the hook, pull up, do a few wraps just against the hook shank to secure it nice and tight to the hook. I have a pet peeve about flies that just spin around once you're done with them. You don't really want to fish them because they just don't, I don't know, they seem like they're going to fall apart. Anyway, we try and avoid that here. So we're going to take that second flap down now that we have that first part established, and we're just going to sort of pinch it and hold it into place as we cinch it down with our thread. You can see there's a nice abdomen spot and a nice thorax started for our spider. At this point we need some legs. We are just going to take some Rainey's rubber legs. I've used other companies of rubber legs, or I've trimmed these guys out, the silly legs, just the one little piece, so I have that nice barring pattern happening. There's any number of things you can do. Really, if it's rubber, it's going to wiggle the way we want it to, and it's going to create plenty of surface action for our late season bass and bluegill. Well, these spiders work at any point in the season, but I like to fish them in the fall. I think it's something about the leaves changing, and then you have these guys floating and wiggling plenty. Putting fish on the hook. I'm just folding these guys in half and finding the halfway point and cutting them there. They don't need to be perfect. We can trim them later according to size, but we don't need them to be this long. So I took one piece and I have eight legs, 8 individual legs, so that's good enough for like 2 spiders, because this point, we're going to grab ourselves a pair of them. If I can manage. And we're going to slide this up into our thread rather than wrapping to capture them. I like to do this technique because it allows me to sort of set them where I want them and then pinch it down with a wrap or two. You can tug on them right now to sort of get them where you want them. I'll do 3, 4, 5, 6 wraps. You just want to give them some nice tight securing wraps after you have them sort of the way you like them. And this looks great. I mean, they'll wiggle fine. Maybe it would be nice if they were a little flatter, but I'm going to go to super glue this in a minute, and it'll really, it sort of melts the foam and the rubber together, so beware of that. Don't use too much super glue, but it really gives you a nice finish, a nice bond with it all. And you don't have to worry so much. So I tuck those up into the thread. I'm going to come around, capture them, a few tight turns, sort of pull them where I want them. Maybe give them an adjustment at this point if you think they're too long in the front or too long in the back. Just pull to where you think you like them, where it looks good to you, and go ahead and set it with a few more real tight wraps. At this point, we'll comb everything back and we'll go over our bare hook shank up to our eyelet now, where we are going to sweep the rubber back but sort of push in that first piece of foam and wrap to capture it. You want it tight. If there's some space in between where you have it tied and the eye of the hook, you can sort of trim that out if you can get at it. Otherwise, we are going to wrap over the top of it and give ourselves a nice clean area to wrap the next piece of foam forward. Now that it's the way you like it, it's pretty good and clean. Fold over that next piece of foam. Go ahead, give yourself a few wraps and cinch it down. I give the foam a little tug as I come in here with a scissors to trim away as little of the foam as possible. I think it can look like some cool eyes in here. Of course, you could just wrap over the whole thing and try and make it look as good as possible, but I think having a little bit there that has the thread biting in on it is perfect, and it's just barely sticking out. You can still thread the needle and get your tippet in there. This guy's looking pretty awesome. I like big white patterns, especially in dirty rivers, because it seems to catch the fish. Anyway, we're going to do just a simple whip finish. if you've never done a whip finish before, you catch it with the hook, you put it up in the crook, you make a triangle, and you spin it, even though I failed to do it that time. But once again, in the hook, in the crook, come up. If you have a triangle that's rotating around the eye of the hook, you got yourself a deal. That's looking pretty good. Go ahead, trim away. Come in here with our super glue, whatever you prefer. I have a bottle of Gorilla Glue, but I have used Zap-A-Gap. I have finished these guys off with that UV epoxy stuff. Use what you got. But I'm just going to do a brush across the bottom part of him, including the threads. Don't want too much in there. And just close that bottle tight so you don't lose it. And take your bodkin, get a little super glue, and take a pair of these back legs and sort of stick them to the foam. If you can get them to layer up and sort of hang out next to the body, you can make these things look a little bit more natural and a little bit more spread out. Do that with the fronts too. I mean, doesn't have to be perfect. This is just a rubber leg spider, but I think the more that these stand at different angles away from the body, the better it looks for the fish. And if it looks real good for the fish, you're probably going to catch more of them. So but yeah, it's just, you know, a little something to help use all the appendages and make them really stand out. So I know the current's going to take it and wiggle them all around, especially if you're fishing in fast water spots. But there you have it, folks. Rubber leg spider. I hope you get out today and fish this pattern. Thank you, and subscribe if you haven't.